I am Scott Horwitz, and pastrami is the delicious cousin of brisket.
It's true. We just had some pastrami. Well, that was great. No.
Friends with deficits.
I grew up outside of Chicago and moved down to Austin to go to college after, regular public high school.
Had you been anywhere before that?
I mean, I traveled around. We didn't really do any international stuff. My dad didn't like to fly, so I grew up driving all over the country. I became the official navigator in the 1987 trip was when I was handed the map the first time and said, "Tell us where we're going next." Chicago to Texas at 18 in the 90s was it was a great transition, actually, in terms of like the cultural differences between the neighborhoody Chicago northern kind of vibe, but also the southern hospitality, and Austin being its weird self. It felt like it was like this very hidden gem neighborhood of Chicago that had been picked up and moved like 1,000 miles south.
Yeah.
I loved Austin and studied film, and I got caught up working, doing different, the production schedule in Chicago is pretty opposite of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So I, would work in Austin for the fall and spring months, and then I was in Chicago for the summer.
When did you get into film?
Oh, I'd always been into film. My earliest memory as a child is seeing Star Wars, the re-release at like maybe 2 years and 9 months. So Star Wars, like the special effects, and then I remember by the time Return of the Jedi came out, I'm that 7-year-old like laying on my stomach in my bedroom, like, licking my finger and slowly turning the pages of this technical journal on how they did all the effects, and I was just blown away. And it was like, even at 6 or 7 years old, I was like, you can do that for a living. You can do that for your life. Wow. And it was just like, so, I grew up playing soccer, and then, I wasn't really much of an artsy kid in terms of like, I didn't have really great depth perception skills for drawing, for, like how to make things look 3D and whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I ended up getting hurt, and I had a career-ending injury at age 8. My professional soccer career ended very early. That was the original dream.
Really?
Yeah.
Soccer?
Yeah. I mean, everybody, when you're a little kid and you're fireman or whatever, I want to be a soccer player. And so there was a kid who I was, friendly with at school, who it's towards the end of the year, 3rd grade, and he says, "Why don't you come over after school?" And I was like, "Oh, cool." His dad was a professional soccer player for the Chicago Sting. He's one of the defensemen. And so it was like, yeah, I'll totally love to come to your house. Totally forgot that I had piano lesson. And like, this is 85. So like, it's not like you're calling your mom on your cell phone and be like, "I'm going to someone else's house." Right. This was feral, whatever. So we were playing King of the Mountain, and he tossed me off the hill in a way that I landed, and I broke my hip. I spent about 5 months in a body cast, had like three and a half surgeries. One of them they had to put me under, but didn't really do anything that change the cast. They didn't want me to move. So the way they immobilized me for that was they put me to sleep. So yeah, so I was.
That is career ending.
Yeah. That was career ending, yes. Well, the weird thing too was that the leg that I broke grew to be about an inch or so longer than the leg I did not break, as the body was trying to heal itself to, sending more and more blood to heal that section. So my right leg was an inch longer than my left leg, and I was going to have to start wearing special shoes. And my mom and dad said to the doctor, "No, you got to fix this." And so I ended up being the case study in the book. They did an experimental surgery at the time where they removed a portion of the growth plate in my right knee, so that as I aged, my right leg would grow slower than my left leg. And by my 21st birthday, they were hip bone to ankle bone, the exact same to the millimeter, which is its own unusual problem, because 99% of humans are off a millimeter or two in the way that they stand. Yeah. And that, I guess, having exact leg lengths matching can lead to like hip dysplasia and other more stuff that you hear about in German Shepherds. Oddly, though, after all this time, I ended up developing arthritis in my knee at a very young age from as one of the after effects of that surgery. So, yeah, it was a wild ride for from 8 to 12, 13.
And what happened as a result of that? Like, did you have any other surgery?
No. I had this weird thing where my knee swelled up to the size of a grapefruit, and they had to drain it and do this whole thing. And they were like, this is a common condition. At age 60, it's common amongst 3% of people, but at age 90, it's common amongst 50% of people. So usually by age of 90, how they explained it to me was there's so many other things ahead on the list that there's really no treatment for this. And so, I mean, for me, it's more been like a temperature thing. So like I'm pretty good between, 40 degrees and 95. And if it's cold, it gets really painful and more of like the shooting pains. Whereas once it gets hotter than 95, it swells up and it becomes just like I've got this weird sluggish knee that doesn't bend all the way. So, I mean, I know that it's the friends with deficits. I might be one of the only people that you have on who had to learn how to walk twice, because that was the thing after I had gotten out of the body cast, was that they had to teach me how to walk again.
You couldn't walk at all, or you just like?
I was completely and totally immobilized in the right hip, and the way they did that was they had the cast came up to just under my pecs, and then on the right leg it went all the way down to my toes and over my toes, and then I had a bar in the middle connecting it to my left leg, where the cast came down to just about my knee. So I was totally immobilized with this bar holding me exactly the way that they wanted me, so that there was no movement and it didn't disrupt the blood flow.
For how long did you say?
The first cast was end of May until from Memorial Day to Thanksgiving. I was basically in a full body cast.
Were you in school? Did they take you out?
No. Yeah, well, so it was summer, so that was like the first thing. Yeah, so at 8 years old, I learned to watch The Young and the Restless.
Okay.
If that doesn't tell you. Then, when school started, they couldn't accommodate like getting me to and from whatever. And I also had younger brothers that my parents were still dealing with. But the district sent over a tutor at like 9 a.m, and I was done with all my work by like 10:30, 11 o'clock to be able to watch my soaps.
Nice. To watch your soaps.
So, one of the crazy things that was an outcome of breaking my hip was, I had been immobilized for so long that to do the physical therapy, once I was out of the cast, it took weeks for me to learn how to walk again. And so, it's something that as an 8-year-old, it didn't really faze me, because it was just like, I just need to do this, but looking back, it really is an amazing thing that like at 8 years old, when you learn to walk, you think about it. Mm-hmm. And then, but to be older and to have been immobilized and have this dangerous injury that they were worried originally that the blood flow wasn't going to come back to my hip, and that they didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again. This is around the time of the Bo Jackson. Remember Bo Jackson? He was NFL and MLB, and he got speared helmet right to the side of the hip. And he lost blood supply to the head of the femur, and then they had to remove his leg and basically give him a hip replacement. He couldn't play anymore. That was a possibility of my break, was that the blood flow did not come back. And, so I had spent the summer, and I'm in this full body cast, and they've cut out like a window to go to the bathroom. So I'm 8 years old, and I'm peeing in one of those like hospital surgery bottles that they tell you how many cc's of urine you have each time. Oh, it was very exciting. And then, I was using a bedpan for like most of that summer.
Do you have any help?
Well, yeah, as an 8-year-old, like, my parents would like have to turn me over and wipe me. Like, to be a kid and like lose your dignity that way. And like, that's something that you don't normally experience in life until you're way much older.
Yeah.
And so like to have that ability to like, just understand what it means to really need to heal, to really need to ask for help. Those were some of the skills that were like invaluable. And like that I was, because of this awful experience, I was still able to relate to people in a different, more elevated way. And I've been in and out of therapy. You know, my parents got divorced when I was 5, and I, you know, had family members die suddenly in unexpected ways, and started therapy when I was 10. My dad thought that after a broken hip and you know, my parents' divorce, like maybe therapy's not a bad idea. Especially as an adult, like you know, you come to therapy and you know they'll ask you, you know, and your intake stuff, what is the one thing that you know when you're really in a bad place that you can think to yourself, well, I can do this and it makes me happy. And I'm like, well, I can walk. And the therapist is like, well, that's not
It's something deeper.
Yeah, it's something deeper than that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. We haven't had therapy yet. I had to learn how to walk again at age 8. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's like, yeah, we'll get into that. Like, you know, but they're always thrown off by that. Well, you know, oh, yeah, no, something a little more than walking. Like
I've got 2 legs. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Were you in pain when you were rehabilitating?
Oh, yeah. Well, so when I broke my hip, my body went into shock for about 15 hours. And I had, again, like I'm at the home of a professional soccer player. And, you know, my mom's car was in the shop. I got hurt. He called my mom and said, do you want me to bring him home? And she said, well, just come and pick me up and I need you to drive us to the hospital. And so we picked up my mom, and the local hospital, the surgeon who was on call happened to be the orthopedic surgeon for the soccer team that this guy played for. And I don't remember very much of that day. I remember getting x-rayed and being back in the recovery room and then being in a room, but they loaded me up on painkillers and whatever. And then I was supposed to have surgery in the morning, and I woke up and my legs were strapped down to a bed. They must have transferred me to a gurney while I was sleeping. And, you know, I said, my dad was there, and I was like, why am I tied down like this? And he was like, well, you're not having surgery this morning. We're transferring you to the children's hospital. The doctor thought about it overnight and wants you to have a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. Great. So then they put me in an ambulance. And this is my first experience hallucinating, was tied to a gurney, the back of an ambulance at age 8.
Wow.
And like going from, you know, where we were in the suburbs into the city in an ambulance. And I have this, it's such a specific memory of feeling like I had been strapped into this, onto the gurney, but the gurney had been put 90 degrees upright so that my head was at the bottom, and I was like looking up at all these people, and it felt like the blood was all rushing to my head, and just like all these crazy sensations where it's like, I'm 8 years old. I know I'm laying down on my back, but this is like, what is going on, you know? So I got into the hospital, and I remember meeting the first nurse that night, and then that's when the pain really kicked in. And so broke my hip on a Tuesday. So that was Wednesday night. And then Wednesday night, I was in so much pain that I was in a room of 4 kids, and there was a room of 4 kids on either side of my room, and I was keeping up all 12 of the kids. And so they put me in basically in solitary because the pain meds were wearing off after like 30, 40 minutes. And they were giving me the max dosage for my weight of Demerol at a shot in my leg. Then I had the surgery. Again, I'm 8 years old, and they put me in a room with one other kid, and he was 15. I don't remember his name, and he'd gotten hit by a train and lost an arm at the elbow and a leg at the knee and the other leg at the ankle or his foot. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I remember like the first night, my parents didn't sleep in the room so I was, you know, just me and this other kid. And like, I started crying because I was, you know, I'm 8. And I remember him just yelling at me to shut the fuck up. And I was like, well, he got hit by a train, so I'll just shut up. You know, and it again, another, like it taught you perspective and things. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I know I'm fucked up, but I didn't get hit by a train.
Yeah.
And then somehow my dad taught me how to play gin in the middle of hallucinations. Okay. So like, you know, so playing cards, doing Demerol as you do at age 8. Like, no, but so the craziest thing actually that came out of that, and why I say to therapists, I can walk, is, so I'm Jewish, and my mom invited my pediatric orthopedic surgeon to my bar mitzvah. And this guy, he couldn't go for whatever reason. Wonderful man. His name was Mirhan Tajin, Armenian guy who just like showed up in the States. I don't even know how, in like the late 50s, and became like the premier physician for children's hip and knee, like in the world. Like in the mid 80s, I remember him going and lecturing in China for months. Wow. Yeah, and like all these places all over the world. And so he wasn't able to come to my bar mitzvah, but I had the checkup appointment, and he said to, you're going to be 13. I understand you're going to be a man, so I'm going to tell you something for your birthday, and this is my gift to you. And I was like, okay. And I'm not going to do the accent, but it was very thick. And he said, if the doctor at the local hospital had performed the surgery he planned on and didn't transfer you down to me, you'd have spent your life in a wheelchair.
Wow.
So that's what it was. That was a happy birthday. That was my birthday gift at 13, was the knowledge that if this guy hadn't have been right there, and that he happened to be at Northwestern and at Children's Memorial in Chicago and whatever, that I could have spent my entire life in a wheelchair. And then when I explain that to the therapist, they go, "Oh, I see why you say that you can walk is something that you can always lean on." Literally, like being an 8-year-old who's tethered to a bedpan, it's not a great way to spend a summer. Yeah. And I attempted and was successful, luckily. In the body cast, my mom and my grandmother had gone out and left me alone with my grandfather, and I needed to move my bowels. And so I was like, there is no fucking way in hell I'm asking my grandfather to help me get out of bedpan. Like, this is just World War II vet. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I mean, I remember going to the bathroom and being like, well, if I shit all over the cast, then they'll just have to give me a new cast. And like 9 years old, thinking this out in the bathroom, and like, and I can't bend. So I'm literally like, holding myself up with my right arm, like just like a bombardier for a B-52 in World War II. Like, I'm like just hoping I'm hitting the target. It was an exciting way to get to learn how to use the toilet again. Yeah. for fear of, having your grandfather help you.
Yeah. Did the rehabilitation process, was that painful or challenging, or was it just
was well,
awkward?
but okay, so the weird thing that ended up happening was, so for the first 2.5 months, I would just pull myself along the ground like an army crawl. I weighed 50, 60 pounds, but then I had another 10, 15 pounds of the cast material and whatever. So it was pretty much on the edge of what my mom could even pick up. So after spending 3 months with my only way to really move was all upper body strength, the way that I ended up learning how to walk again, they put me on parallel bars. And so it got to a point where I was already so strong in my upper body that I could just walk along the parallel bars on my hands, like just dragging my feet. And they were like, no. you have to use your legs, I mean, yeah, it was painful. It was more just the rebuilding the muscle after the atrophy. And then looking back on it, I had some friends who are in, body mechanics, body work stuff. And they looked at the pictures of me in the cast, and they were like, oh my God, they hyperextended your back. It looks like they hyperextended your knee. Again, this is 1985. I was the first pediatric MRI at Northwestern University Hospital in Chicago in 1986. So like, they still didn't even know what they were looking at. And the rehab process then is totally different from the rehab process now. I mean, it was more the emotional strength, and like, again, that like I'm 9 years old and all I want to do is go run around with my friends at recess. Yeah. And so it was like, that was more the motivating factor. But I don't know. I never remember thinking, oh, I'm never going to get better or anything like that. So it was always just like, I felt like trapped, like being held in place, like for all this time. And then, you get out and you can move freely again. Even, in that experience, like more, I guess, of an Eastern philosophy sort of way, I, through that, learned how to sit in the discomfort, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so on that front, like I feel like I have both emotionally and physically like a higher pain tolerance. Because once I was out of the cast and things were fine, and they let me get back into gym, they would let me do, I could do all the running and whatever, but I couldn't do like soccer, no contact sports.
Yeah.
Anything where you could like, skiing, no soccer, no football.
Right.
They wouldn't even let me do baseball. They were like, why don't you try tennis? And that wrecked my knee. And then they were like, oh, golf will be great for you. And then it was all the shifting of the hips where my low back ended up being really tight from having been in the cast. That's still the one thing that I have issues with is low back tightness. And I've never been able to get that flexibility back. But so then, I was during that process of healing, that's when the leg that I broke grew to be an inch longer. And in between that 13 to 15, when the generally you have a growth spurt from like 10 to 13 or 14, and then you have a couple of years where you sort of are more stagnant in growth, and then you have that bigger growth spurt again from like 15 to 18 or 19. And so that was the point at which they did that knee surgery so that as I would grow through that second growth spurt that I would even out. And so that's that at 13, I had that other surgery that ended up like, I mean, that one at least that was just a cast on my leg. Like that was an interesting one though, because my leg was so swollen post surgery that 2 weeks after the surgery, I was already back at school and whatever. I was just walking to the bus and my cast just like slipped all the way down my leg because my knee wasn't as swollen anymore. So the edge of the cast like cut my like right in my ankle, like slammed down so hard it just like sliced my ankle open. So I ended up getting recast on that one too, but that was it was nowhere near as painful and nowhere near as intense in terms of like the size of the cast or whatever. But yeah, my doctor told me that I wasn't 1 in a million, I was 1 in a billion. That to break my hip in the way that I did, I'm a man out of time. When you hear about an 85-year-old falling down and breaking their hip, they technically break the neck of the femur, which is right here next to the ball and socket joint. And so he said for me to have that break in like the femur, which is the strongest bone in the body, at an age where I was drinking like 4 glasses of milk a day and like super active and whatever is so unusual.
Again, what is this game? I just kind of nodded because sure, everybody plays. What is it? King of the Mountain?
King of the Mountain. Yeah.
I don't know what this. I just assume you're throwing people off.
You're throwing people off the mountain. Yeah, that's basically it. It's it's. I
mean, why wouldn't that make you break a hip?
But it was the way that I had really been tossed. So my friend had grabbed me by the arm and he spun me around like I was a discus and he threw me and I twisted mid-air and came down flat on my side.
Is that the game though? You just grab
it's whoever's standing,
swirl them around.
You throw them off the hill. You can wrestle them off, you can throw them off, you can push them off, punch them off, whatever. I mean, this is, very 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
70s, 80s parents that
exactly. Latchkey kids.
Go play.
Throw your friend off a mountain or something.
Right.
Dinner at 6. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my God, you missed your piano lesson. I mean, the funny thing is, it was the only time I'd ever miss a piano lesson, and like, my young brain at one point, I was like, oh my God, this was being punished because I didn't go to my piano lesson. I was like, that's crazy. There's no way. I mean, it's funny. I was telling somebody else not that long ago about like I got back from the hospital and I think my dad was trying to have me keep taking piano lessons. And I'm like laying flat out on the floor. He rented an 88 key keyboard, like, full size. And it's on the floor. And I am laying on my stomach on the floor, like craning my neck to just be able to see. I can't read the music because and I'm stretched out in this Superman position, like trying to play like whatever. And my piano teacher was like, maybe we wait until he's out of the cast.
Did you go back and learn?
No, I ended up, my brother, it turns out, is more of a piano prodigy. And so he got really into it because he was he was little when I was like, so I was 8, he was about 2.5 when that was going on. And so by the time I was sort of back into normal day-to-day life, he had already started piano lessons, and luckily he was absorbing all that energy. And then I got to go try my hand at guitar, which I should have tried it lefty. I'm way better in my right hand than my left hand.
Good evening. The following
podcast
is brought to you by Patreon. Visit patreon.com/
Friends with Deficits.
for more information.
Patreon, it's what makes this
Podcast.
so awesome.
In junior high, I had been teased relentlessly because I was the manager of the basketball team. Because I couldn't play and there wasn't really anything else to do in junior high. Then I ended up, because I couldn't do the sports, I ended up becoming really close with the theater teacher at my high school. Also growing up in Chicago, I mean, I'd been to Second City. They have, I forget how often on Sundays they do like kids programming at Second City. So like I'd been going to Second City since I was probably about 10. And then I got to the high school and it was just like, there were so many more opportunities to do stuff. And it was just like, I ended up in the theater department, and it was just a great experience doing most of the plays, a couple of the musicals, although I was never given a singing role. Played Charlie Cowell in The Music Man. Yeah. So that's where that was the sort of transition from, I wanted to be this sports guy, I wanted to play soccer, to I think I could make a career in film and television or theater or, something in the creative world. Not only did I do stuff on stage, but I also got to design sets. And then by the time I got down to UT, first semester I took the technical theater arts. So it was like I hung lights for a show called K2 that was like the guy on the mountain or whatever. And so, and did a lot of lighting and that sort of stuff at the same time that I was taking my, intro to film classes. And after 2 semesters, it was like, okay, I don't want to have to move to New York. So I don't want to do advertising and I don't want to do theater production. I'm going to go into film. And this is, again, so much of life depends on timing and luck and all that, and that like where you are when you're there. I started at UT the week that Dazed and Confused came out on VHS. So Austin had then blown up, Slacker had already come out. And then, a few years later you have, I think it was Desperado with Antonio Banderas that he did. Richard Rodriguez did it for like $7,000. Then they went back and redid it with a full budget. And so Austin was blowing up and I had all this opportunity just coming to town. And I started working on commercials and a lot of industrial stuff, anything I could get behind a camera. And like at some point, I remember I got in trouble for skipping a final because I was working. And I loved it. I love the camaraderie on set. I love the creative problem solving of like all of these different departments coming at it from their own angle and like how they have to fit in to solve whatever it is that whatever they're trying to do for the day. And it's like, I loved the team sport aspect of filmmaking because it is, you need everybody that's there and you're all pushing towards one person's vision, and hopefully it's somebody who's a good leader. And then, it feels like you're really all working on something. Yeah. And then, I've been on great sets and I've been on, not so great sets, but the great ones when things are really clicking, it is, there's nothing like it. You got 140 people working 16 hours to all put together like 2 minutes of shoot time, or of screen time rather, and it's like, and that's what we did that day.
And they're all like giving their best.
And and I got very lucky in that coming out of Austin when I moved to LA, my resume was full of Austin and everybody in LA was like, oh my God, you've worked in Austin?
Really?
Yeah.
Back
It
then?
was so crazy. It was so crazy to me.
In the 90s?
Yeah, this is so late 90s.
Huh.
So like, I guess Newton Boys was probably one of the last like things that come out before I moved to LA that was like Austin based that I remember. And oh my God, it was Austin was like the second coming of some thing. I don't know. I like the way that the response in LA was to, oh wow, you did all this work in Austin. It blew my mind. It just like, because I worked in Chicago, I'd worked I'd worked up in Dallas, I worked in all these other places, but just so strange.
How did you get to LA? Or why did you go there?
Oh well, because so I'd been working on that movie in Chicago, and I got fired, and it started snowing. I was doing a lockup on L tracks, calling out for trains as they would come, so that they would hold the roll. And it's the week before Thanksgiving. It's like 15 degrees, 3 a.m, and I'm calling out L trains on the platform. I'm not even near where we're shooting. This is just so that sound department can like slow everything down. And then 2 days later, I got fired because one of the actresses didn't like me. And I was like, it doesn't snow in LA. I can sit outside all night and it doesn't hit 15 degrees. Like, it was almost winter. And I gave myself, I don't know why I was so ridiculous about it, but I said, okay, you're going out there at the end of December. You have 2 weeks to find a job.
In LA.
And like, I mean, before the end of the first weekend of the year, I ended up getting a job as an assistant to a director who was shooting his first feature. And I was like straddling the line of his personal assistant, but also on the movie with him. So it was a Saturday. I was supposed to be off. We weren't shooting. And he calls me out of the blue at like 11 a.m. He's like, I need you to go up the house and let out the dogs. I was like, I'm not going to make the dogs pay for this, but like, I'm really not thrilled with it. So I get up there. It's up on Mount Washington over near Highland Park. And this is back in the 90s when the avenues were all controlled by, I forget which gang. And here I am, this little gringo kid who has no idea what's going on around him, like getting tacos at the Avenue 43 truck with like all these gangbangers, like just looking at me like, what are you doing?
Wow.
And so anyway, so I go up to this guy's house on Mount Washington. It's got this like 800 square foot little cottage, 1 bedroom. And I walk in there and he's sitting in his underwear at the desk, like typing. And I'm like, you called me. I had to drove over here for like, 25-minute, 30-minute drive. You're here? You couldn't just let your dogs out? Oh no, I'm really in it, man. I'm really just like, and okay, fine. I'm already here. I'll let the dogs out. A couple of minutes outside, bring him back in. And he goes, oh, hey, follow me. And again, he's in his underwear and he's got his tiny little house. And it's like, where am I going to follow him to? And he gets up and he crosses the living room and goes straight into the bathroom. It's one of those old slatted doors that for air flow or whatever. And he's like, okay, on page whatever. I'm like, are you really going to go over script pages with me while you're on the can? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, you're not. We're done. I'm going home. Like, if you want to fire me, you can fire me. I'm not doing this through the bathroom door with you on my day off. Like,
wow. Was that the end of that? Did he fire you?
No, he didn't fire me. I stayed on to the end of the show, and then I got picked up by Galaxy Quest. The art department needed somebody to wipe the floor between takes because it was a highly reflective floor that it was all spaceship stuff, And so literally first day I start, it's like I'm at Wimbledon. Like they call cut and I come out with my rag and I sweep across the floor and I duck in behind the other, cutout in the wall. So I'm out there and, just like literally Wimbledoning every piece of dust that I can get. And oh my God, another time where I thought I was going to get fired. I like, they call clear frame. We're going to roll. So I ducked behind this cutout in the wall, and I didn't know that was where Sigourney Weaver was making her entrance. And so like I duck in, so I'm off camera, and I look up, and I am now like staring right into Sigourney Weaver's face, which is, you're not supposed to get in the eye line of an actor right before they go on, and like there's all this etiquette and stuff on set, and it's like, oh my God, I've been here for like 6 hours. I'm gonna get fired for interrupting Sigourney Weaver's concentration. Yeah. And like, and the scary thing was, like, she looked at me with such like fire. I swear to God, I thought she was Ripley, and I was gonna like have this alien baby come out of my stomach, and just like, I thought she was going to tear me apart. So I made it through the first day, and then the second day I'm doing the floor thing, and the woman who I was working for pulled aside the first AD and, unbeknownst to me, told him that he owed her for something, and that if he hired me full time, she was square on that. So I got hired because the the art department person like went to bat for me, which was pretty awesome. And then they realized that I really did have all this experience, and like that was like my first real job in LA. Was like I walked into a $90 million DreamWorks production that was a spoof of Star Trek that was maybe one of the best Star Trek films of all time. You know, I mean, David Mamet said it's one of the 4 perfect scripts that he's ever seen.
Really? So
Yeah. The setup, that the narrative structure of it is like,
Yeah.
it fits perfectly for what it's supposed to do. So that was an amazing experience. And the film industry just sort of swallowed me whole at that point. I mean, I worked straight for almost 2 years, and then I sort of ran into a buzzsaw with another producer who was like, you know, this one, he was very passive aggressive, didn't really know how to tell me what he wanted, just wanted me to know what it was. And so we were rolling calls one day, we're on the phone, he's mad at me about something, and finish the calls, and he goes, I just have one more question for you. I was like, okay. And he's like, do I intimidate you? And it was like, if you need to feel like you intimidate me, then yes. And that one got me fired.
Shit.
He's like, you're done, but I still need a week or two to find somebody else to replace you.
Yeah.
So that one, I mean, this guy was terrible. And I would bounce back and forth a lot because I was counting my DGA days. I was trying to get into the Directors Guild because I wanted to be an assistant director. And again, like the experience of being in all these different departments and seeing how they all work independent of each other, but then come together to, like, you know, both on the budgetary side and then on the creative side, like come together to do their part and then create the whole. I mean, it was just a really gratifying experience in a tremendous number of ways. I ended up getting out of the business because of some crazy family losses, really. There was, in 1 year, my dad, my brother, and my grandmother all died of various sort of demises. So my dad died first, May of 2002. My brother died December of 2002, car accident. And then my grandmother died in May of 2003. And when my brother died, my mom really took a nosedive. And I was really worried about my mom. And at the time, my girlfriend was applying to medical school. And she got in medical school in Chicago and not in any of the LA schools. And then I moved back to Chicago, and I became a traveling marshmallow salesman in short order. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll pause and station break, and we're back with Marshmallow Salesman Scott.
Okay, so I had moved back, and I had gotten my real estate license and really just did not like it. It was too much. If somebody who took so much satisfaction out of having 100 people working on the same project at the same time, all like moving towards this one thing, like the solo aspect of, you know, selling real estate it was just, I did not like it whatsoever. It was not a fit for me. Anyway, so my ex-stepmother's then husband, he was a raw material importer and distributor for food products, selling into Kellogg's and Post and all the big, you know, food manufacturers. He didn't do anything that was like commercially available. It was all raw material goods. But the only finished product they were selling into, or hoping to sell into food service, was this new to world marshmallow cream that they had developed for making Rice Krispie treats in bulk. So it was basically the same ingredients that are in a marshmallow, except instead of whipping it and putting air into it, we would put butter into it and then put it into a Ziploc bag, basically, that you reheated the goo, the marshmallow goo, poured it over your cereal, mixed it up, and you were done, as opposed to when you cook the marshmallows, you take the air back out of it and then you add in the butter when you make them at home. And this can very easily go off the rails into a TED talk about marshmallows.
Wait, are you talking about cereal, or are you talking about marshmallow? What do you call them? Rice Krispie treats.
Rice Krispie treats, yeah. So
this like, I didn't know they were like DIY or something.
Well, yeah, you can get. I mean, just making them at home is just a bag of marshmallows, stick of butter, and
gotcha.
box. You know, like Mom used to make before.
Not my mom, unfortunately.
Well, I mean,
okay.
I think that's just a saying.
Okay.
But the idea was that particular product is very labor intensive because you have to melt the marshmallows and then melt the butter back in it, but not do it. And you have a very short window before you crystallize your sugars to a point where you can't work with the marshmallow. Becomes not pliable. And so you can't mix it, and then you end up with like, a big clump and then a bunch of cereal, whatever. So, but these college university food services that are making 30, 40, 50 sheets, 18 by 26 pan sheets of Rice Krispie treats a day because they have 14,000 college students and whatever, was like, for them, it was a huge savings in time because it would take the production time for that item from like several hours down to about an hour. Yeah, so it's called mallow cream, and it was literally designed for making Rice Krispie treats in bulk. And I basically spent 5 years traveling the whole country, going to different end users and pitching them, this is the new way to make Rice Krispie treats. And it was slow going, really slow going at first. I mean, this was totally outside their wheelhouse. They didn't have any finished products, and they wanted to try to get into like Cisco, US Foods, the big food distributors, Shamrock, and there's some others I can't remember the name of. So it was hard to try to like force it in without having any like support for tie-ins or anything like that, because we were a one-trick pony. These guys were like, just call bakeries out of the blue, and like, my boss, just call, and it's, the random baker isn't gonna take advice on how to do this, and number two is just like, they've already got their systems. Generally, bakers, when they're used to doing something, aren't interested in changing it. And so then once I narrowed it down and really figured out that it was, college students away from home, disposable income, comfort food, that it was like, oh, perfect. Okay. So then my big customers ended up being like Oklahoma State and UC Berkeley and some of these other schools that were big enough to then force distribution in through, because they could just say to their Cisco, bring this in, we want it.
Did you reach out to the schools, or did you?
Well, what happened was I was at a trade show for grocery bakeries, right? So this is like all the subsidiaries of Albertsons and Kroger's and high-end ones and low-end ones, and all the buyers for bakery are there. And I'm doing these demonstrations where I'm making pan after pan after pan of Rice Krispie treats. And the randomness of life, I got assigned a booth right next to the manufacturers of very high-end commercial-only pan spray. So like the, Pam, but, in commercial kitchens. And I'd gone to the grocery store for each of these trade shows, and I buy like 5-6 cans of spray, and like, because what goes great with sticky marshmallow? Pan spray. So, these people in this booth right next to me are watching me go through can after can of cheap knockoff groceries brand product. And their rep that was there, her name is Deb Paquette, and she's from Dallas. Okay. And she had played on the A&M women's basketball team in like the 70s. And when she found out that I went to UT, it was just like, we just started bickering back and forth, had a great time. And at the end of that show, she said to me, look, we got to do a partnership, something here, because you spill more product at your trade show than some of my customers use all year. We got to talk. And so we set up a test market in a couple of different places, and we'd go out and we'd pitch. And so I was at the Boston Garden in the kitchen, and I've been to all these crazy like places that you're in the bowels of the basement somewhere, like totally lost. And it's like the Copa scene in Goodfellas, where he's just walking through and, it's crazy. Yeah. And so then we had a great melding of the marshmallow cultures, I guess you would say. And I ended up flying around just making Rice Krispie treats, showing people how to make Rice Krispie treats.
Was there anything else this was used for? It was just like straight up.
Well, I mean, you could use it. I mean, we had recipes like you could make like a quick microwave fudge as opposed to traditional methods. It was faster. You could use it in 7-layer dream bars.
You make s'mores with it?
Well, actually, I made a s'mores Rice Krispie treat because our product would stay pliable much longer than a marshmallow. So you could let it cool off and it would still mix. And so you could put meltables, and we would put, I would do a box of Rice Krispies, a box of Golden Grahams, and then a bag of mini marshmallows and a bag of chocolate chips. and I would make a s'mores Rice Krispie bar with,
All right.
yeah. So we had mini marshmallows in the marshmallow goo. It was, you know, at that time, my then girlfriend had become my wife, and she was doing her residency at one of the hospitals in Chicago. And I was making so many trays of Rice Krispie treats a week that I would just send them with her, and like she'd put them in the break room, and she was in the OB department, so there were always a lot of people around. So, and then when I wasn't traveling, I was working on different formulations for different cereal bars, for as crazy as it sounds, because there's USDA programs in the K through 12 schools where they get these USDA commodities that usually kids won't eat, like oats, like cranberries in the Northeast, and like, whatever. And so once I got connected in with some of the nutritional people at the K-12 level, started formulating these Rice Krispie bars to be more like granola bars or whatever, where they would use the oats and use the cranberries, because this is just sweet candy glue, basically. And then it would, if it met enough of the nutritional requirements, the schools could get credit for their nutritional program and use up their 5-year stockpile of cranberries. So I would make all these different trays and send them with my wife to the hospital, because like we'd each take a small bite at the office, and everybody like, oh yeah, it's good. No, I wouldn't do this one again. So then the note came back from the hospital, from the nursing department, to stop sending them because everybody was gaining so much weight. Yeah, I spent 5 years on the road. I'm gold for life on American Airlines from all the flying that I did, and it was fun. I got to be the Marshmallow King of Chicago for a little while.
How did that end?
That test market that I set up with that other company, they bought in fully, and then I trained the rest of their regional managers who worked with their brokers and their sales teams. And then just the timing of it worked out perfectly. I became a stay-at-home dad. I had trained everybody and gotten everything ready so that I could step back and be in a support role and not travel and be at home. And then they would just call me for like troubleshooting marshmallow problems.
Nice. How old was your kid? You just meant drop.
I got married in 2005, and we had Matthew in April of 2009. And so basically I'd finished all of the training stuff before that February, before he was born, and then was transitioning into that I'm your call support, like, and dealing with production of marshmallow cream and whatever. But everything that I could just do from home without having to travel. So yeah, so in April of 2009, I switched to a full-time stay-at-home dad till 2018. And then ended up getting divorced and moved back to LA. And I had been in town for just over a year, like 14 months or so, and then pandemic hit. COVID slowed everything down to a point that I wasn't able to earn enough to be able to continue living out there. And I ended up back in Austin because I could afford Austin much easier. On some job 100 years ago, I told my boss to pay me on SAG vouchers so that if I ever wanted to join the union, I could. So when I went back, I know that everybody's just at home listening, can't see my hair, but I have really long dark hair and a really thick beard, and I got typecast as a terrorist. I did Homeland, I did NCIS a couple of times, I did SEAL Team a couple of times. I got to join the elite Hollywood Taliban.
As they're known.
Yes, yeah. It was great. It was like a bunch of Mexican dudes and a bunch of Pakistani dudes and a couple of Lebanese dudes. I was the token Jew. And but
we all come together as terrorists.
We all come together
Hollywood.
as terrorists. Well, and I know that I've played both Sunni terrorist and Shia terrorist. Oh. So I feel like I can speak to both sides of those issues. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a wild ride. The 2020s have been a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And here I've been looking to try to find ways into different creative stuff, and it's taken a little bit longer, being in my late 40s, trying to make new friends and do the whole.
Yep. It is.
And I mean, Austin has changed so much in so many wonderful ways since I was here 30 years ago, and it's it's just been really exciting. I mean, I feel like I'm in this place where I'm after, getting divorced and then moving to LA and then COVID and then like just sort of getting bounced around a little bit, that I finally feel like I've arrived. 2026 already has just been like so much more productive in terms of creativity and meeting different people, meeting new people. It's been really a very, very lucky last couple of months in terms of, rarely will I say I feel blessed, but just the way that things have come together, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so that's been really cool.
Anything going forward that you're planning or aspiring to do? Or
Yeah, I really need to get back to focus on my writing. I was really doing I've written a bunch of screenplays that haven't gotten traction in anything. And a very good friend of mine who was my writing partner on and off, he's got a vampire story that's been optioned by a company in Finland that I'm hoping that goes for him as the writer. And if that does, then hopefully I'll get to go out and just be his finger quotes assistant. But yeah, I want to probably get up and do some stand-up this year and try and get back into, when I was in Chicago, I had a great time at Second City as an adult. I did their 1 year writing for sketch program. And that was just a blast, where you basically, get to put your own Second City style review up. So I'd like to find something like that down here in Austin with improv group or something like that. And for the first time again in a long time, I feel like I have options to do really whatever strikes my creative chords at this point. So, yeah.
Well, cool. It's been great talking with you.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me. It's been a fun thing.
We should go grab a drink or get a marshmallow treat.
Yeah, we should have a marshmallow treat. I should have. If I was smart, I would have thought ahead and made a batch. But
Damn.
luckily, I know how to find you.
All right. Well, all right. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Scott Horwitz, for talking with me. And hey, listen, I've been doing this Patreon thing for a while, and it's a great help in getting this show produced and keeping it running. So if you'd like to help support Friends with Deficits, visit patreon.com/friendswithdeficits. I'm adding an outtake from this conversation on the Patreon feed, one of Scott's LA stories you might find amusing. And if you can't or don't want to do that, but you still kind of like Friends with Deficits, tell your friends about the show. Leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on your favorite socials, and just keep listening. I'm Adam Sultan, and I have just one more question for you. Do I intimidate you?